Welcome, everyone. Another episode of Runners Roundtable. And this episode is all about staying safe on the run. And I'm so excited. I have Jodi Fisher here from Go Guarded with me. And I shared a little bit before I started recording, but I am a fan of the ring. And back in September, thank you, Jodi, for reminding me of the timeline. Back in September, it was soon after Eliza Fletcher's murder came out, and there was a lot going on, and I was in a position of what can I do to stay safe? I'm doing everything I can to stay safe, but always want to take more measures to stay safe. So I bought one for myself, and I bought about 15 other ones. It's a lot. I got very different colors so that I can hand out to my female running friends. And if you're listening to this and you're one of those friends, know that I love you very much and I want you to stay safe. And that's why you were gifted one. But that's my experience with Go Guarded. I absolutely love the ring. I tell everyone about it, and just even the adjustable inserts for the size of your finger. And for people who are listening, if they go back to episode 2 of this season with Christy Zook, we talked about Go Guarded as one of the necessary items for runners. So it feels so lovely to have you here and to chat with you. I'm going to quiet down for a minute and ask you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your personal running story and also how Go Guarded came to be what it is today.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure, and I love hearing how you found Go Guarded, and I just love the love you have for your running crew and your friends, and you want them all to be safe and come home to their families, and so I love hearing that. So I started running probably 7 years ago. I was cycling, got injured, so had to have surgery, and the doctor said, cycling not for you. How about running? So I said, okay. And I'm not a fantastic runner. I'm very middle of the pack. I don't run long distances. For me, anything beyond 5 miles, like nothing good is going to happen to me past 5 miles, right? So I've learned that. So I just do it. I think it for my mental health, for my physical health, to keep connected. Runners are such wonderful people. In my experience, I've made the best friends through running. So when I started 7 years ago, I didn't have my crew yet. So I was brand new runner. I'm out on a solo run. I went to this park in Midtown, Tucson, and I was just going to run around the perimeter, and it was after work. And I somehow, I don't know, I'm still not sure how I did this, but I managed to take a wrong turn, and it ended up in this kind of darker, secluded part of the park. And the sun is setting, and I just felt very vulnerable. And everything was fine. I picked up the pace, and I got to a more populated area, and everything was fine. But that feeling stuck with me, how vulnerable I was just out there by myself in, my little running shorts and my little tank top. And it stuck with me. Professionally, I've always worked in law enforcement and criminal justice, and I still do. So I've always had, for 20 plus years, this mindset about personal safety, because it's always drilled into you. Just always have to be safe, and you're sometimes in dangerous situations. So it's just always been something I've always paid a lot of attention to. So after that run, pardon me, I started looking for, I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Hopefully you edit this. I'm not sure. If not, apologies.
Everyone's I don't edit it, y'all. I want people to.
Oh, no. Okay, that's fine.
No, this is fine. This is real people. This is real life conversation.
Oh, absolutely. So after that run, I started looking for self-defense items that made sense for runners, that were practical, convenient, effective. And I literally found nothing but pepper spray. I've never been a huge fan of pepper spray. I mean, it is effective in certain situations, but it also has some downsides. And I know about them. So I just kept looking, I couldn't believe that nothing existed specifically that made sense for runners. So I had this idea, and that's how Go Guarded was born. So little bit rocky a start, because I didn't know anything about product development. I had no background, but I had this idea, and I found a product engineer, and I took the idea to them, and they're like, that's a great idea. We'd love to work on this project. Okay. Well, what is that going to cost? Okay, so that's X dollars. I'm like, oh, okay, I can afford that. And then I get the prototype, and I was like, oh, I like this. And they're like, yeah, it's great. So I showed it to some of my running people, and the feedback was all positive. And they're like, that's a great idea. Okay, so what's my next step? So I go back to the team. I go, okay, what's next? And they said, oh, okay, now you have to develop a production mold. And that was super expensive, right? So I was like, well, yeah. So eventually I end up borrowing money against my retirement account.
Wow.
Yeah, to fund it. And I mean, I guess the good part of that is that I actually had a retirement fund, and I was able to borrow against. So I did, and I took the next step. And yeah, so I started with the ring, was the first product. And it's been relatively successful. And I've just grown the business little by little, adding new products, expanding the reach, expanding the market. And that's the unglamorous backstory of Go Guarded.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I have a question for you. What you said that pepper spray, there's downsides to that. What are the downsides? Because again, for myself, I'm probably very similar to you. I have been running with a little handheld pepper spray for years, because that was the only safety.
Right.
And I guess I want to distinguish between safety for self-protection and then safety just for awareness, right? Because I feel like your headlamp, your reflective gear, that is one kind of safety. Whereas my pepper spray, that was my safety for self-protection. So what are some of the downsides of that? Because again, for me, very similar, that was all I had, because that was all that existed. I would see the handheld tasers, and I'm like, I don't want to run with another like 2 pounds in my hand. And what if I'm freaking out and I can't use it? And I still think about it with the, with the pepper spray of like, what if I'm freaking out and I don't push it or I don't unlatch it? So what, in your opinion or in your experience, have been some of the downsides of the pepper spray?
Right. I mean, just you're spot on. So the biggest thing for me is the wind direction, right? You're not, I mean, there are things out of your control that might make pepper spray ineffective. So that's the first thing. The second thing, it's not ideal at all if somebody attacks you from behind. What are you going to do? And they've got you in a chokehold. There's no way you can spray behind you and not get yourself, right? If you're that close up. So it's not great for close combat. And unfortunately, that's how most attacks happen. You're not going to have some guy walking towards you or running towards you that says, I'm a rapist, and you're going to know that, oh, you know what, I should spray this guy before he gets too close to me. So that, and now for the Go Guarded, we do carry a pepper spray product, but it's in your hand, right? So that eliminates half the battle, because I don't even think they had the handheld with the straps when I was looking 7 years ago. Saber now does have that, and Go Guarded now has that. But it was like, okay, you put your pepper spray in your fanny pack or your pocket. So then you have to stumble and try and get it unlocked, pointed in the correct direction. And what are you going to do? You were like, oh, hold on, Mr. Attacker. Let me,
Let me move the switch.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Let me get my pepper spray. Oh, and can you, the wind's blowing this way. So could you kind of turn this way? So it's those kind of downsides to pepper spray. And I know a lot of people use it, and absolutely personal self-defense is that it's just that it's personal. If that is what you are comfortable with, I am never going to knock it. You do what makes sense for you. But for me, it didn't make sense, and I didn't want to use that. So
Yeah, I can so appreciate, I feel like you're a trailblazer because you went on a run, right? You went on
right.
a run, you experienced vulnerability, and I wrote it down because it's like, oh, you transformed vulnerability into empowerment, right? Because
I love
listen,
that.
I've been on runs and I've been in places where I don't feel safe, and my only thought in that moment is get away from this area as quickly as possible.
Absolutely.
And once I'm done, I'm done. But you took it a step further of, okay, I was vulnerable. I didn't like the way that felt. And let me kind of do some research into it. I just mean not a lot of people are going to go and do those extra steps, go and take a loan out against their retirement in order to create a product like this that for me, it's I wear it. And again, I love that it has I guess, you know what, before I compliment you, can you describe to us what the ring is and how you came about that design and just the different elements of it?
Sure. If you hang on 2 seconds, I can go grab one.
Yeah.
So make it a little easier. Hang on 2 seconds.
Yeah. And I will say, I will link Go Guarded in the show notes so that you all can check out the ring. I have it in the hot pink color.
Okay. All right. I'm back.
All right. Let's see it.
Okay. So the ring, it literally just slips on your finger, and it is a serrated edge with a pointy end. You slip it on your finger. You can adjust the size with these inserts, which would make sense if you saw them. And then that's it. You just slip your ring on. It's there. It's attached to you, so it's less likely to be knocked out of your hand or taken away from you. And it's always ready. So we talked about with the pepper spray, like sometimes before they had the handheld, you'd have to, hang on, let me get out of my fanny pack, or let me point it in the right direction, or anything like that. So this takes that problem out by, it's always ready. It's always attached to you. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to open it. You don't have to fumble to get it. And it's attached, and you're naturally going to use your hands to fight back. So you're just giving yourself kind of a leg up by having this ring attached to your hand. It makes it a lot more effective to, poke or swipe. And it's sharp. Like you have them, so it's surprisingly sharp. It's a heavy duty plastic. So that's the story about the ring.
Yeah, I mean, so the question I get often, and I'll ask you, and then I'll give my
Sure.
personal experience with it. Because the question I get often when I gift it to people is, am I going to hurt myself
Yes.
by wearing it? And what do you usually tell people?
Sure. I get that question a ton. And I just explained that the ring was intentionally developed to reduce the risk of self-harm. It's got a silicone cover over it that it's going to, just flexes right out of the way automatically. You don't have to do anything, but it is there to reduce accidental scrapes. And The other thing I would say is, although it is sharp, and it is made out of plastic rather than like a razor blade type metal. So that way it is intentionally designed to, you need to put a little bit of force behind it to do any damage. Like a casual scrape, if your form is off and you accidentally scrape your, girlfriend running next to you, she'll get a little scratch or a scrape, but you're not going to send somebody to the emergency room for stitches with just a casual swipe of it. So, and also the other thing, people wonder, what if I fall? Am I going to stab myself, right? And to which I say, well, you're probably falling wrong, right? Because when you fall, you're naturally just going to throw your hands out in front to break your fall. In which case, you're nowhere near your rings out in front of you with your hands. If you're falling and you somehow stab yourself, you're falling wrong, is all I can say. So I mean, obviously it's not impossible, but it's unlikely you would seriously injure yourself with this ring.
Yeah. So as someone, and I can tell whoever's listening to this, again, my friends who have been gifted one, or anyone who's interested in learning more about it, I am at the other end of the spectrum of you, where right now I'm training for marathons. I'm in a season of marathons for my life right now as a runner. And I have worn my ring on, I think the longest run I did with it was in my last marathon build, and I wore it for 22 miles. So
oh my goodness.
So the one thing I like is that because it's plastic or that silicone, and when you're outside, your fingers swell, but it comes off easily. Something about that material makes putting it, like, it comes on and it's got grip, but it also comes off easily. Like my rings, I can't take them off at all, but that one I could. So I want people to know that I've ran 22 miles with it on, and 22 miles with having a gel every 3 miles of that. So my hand does come near my face. I am moving things around, and it has not happened often, but there have been times where I have scraped myself, but that's more because, like you said, your form is wrong or you're falling wrong. Or for me, it's because I'm fighting with a gel more than normal, where I will catch myself. So when you call it a scrape, I would agree with that, where I liken it to, if you have a comb, like a comb for your hair, and scrape it across your skin, that's what it's like. So I would say, yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned the whole falling, because in the past, I've worked with a teacher to offer self-defense classes to myself and to some of the women that I run with. And I had told him about the ring, and I told him it was so great. And this is something with falling again. I had told him, oh, I wear the ring on one hand and I have the pepper spray on the other hand. The pepper spray, I'm like, I don't even know if it's actually doing anything other than making me mentally feel secure.
Sure.
So he did send me a message afterwards, and he said, well, when you fall, do you get injured? How do you fall when you're holding those things? And that was the first time I had thought about, wait, what happens when I fall?
Sure.
If I'm holding the pepper spray in my hand, guess what? I'm going to fall and I'm going to hurt myself, because that pepper spray, I am holding it. Whereas the ring, like you said, falling palm down, I'm not going to hurt myself. I mean, if I stab myself, I can't even imagine how I'm falling.
Yeah, like what are the logistics of that? How does that happen?
Yeah, because I think even if you fall back, there really is, I mean, you would have to, in order for the ring and the blade to come out, your hand has to be fisted. Yeah. It has to be fisted, and it has that silicone. Is it silicone that covers?
Yeah, it's a silicone type rubber.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it has that rubber over it, where it's like, you're not going to get yourself at all. But again, when he posed that question, and I remember I even sent him a video, I'm like, this is what it looks like. This is
great. Yeah.
It's like, so that but I hadn't thought of what happens if I were to fall forward, right? Like if someone were to come behind me and push me down, like I'm
Sure.
going to try to catch my fall like that. And with the pepper spray in this hand, that's going to hurt. Whereas in this hand, it won't. So
Right.
thank you
And
for bringing up that.
I have fallen. While, oh gosh, I wasn't even running. It was a post hike, right? So it's still kind of trail area, and I biffed it on, of course, those roots sticking up, and you're tired. It's the end of the hike, so maybe you're not picking up your feet as well as you should. So
Yep.
lesson learned, and I face planted, and I did not hurt myself with the ring. Bruised my ego. Of course, you look around, you're like, who saw that?
Yeah. Yeah.
That kind of thing, but did not physically harm myself because of the ring.
So the ring, it's $19.99?
$14.99.
14. Okay. I was going to say, what product of yours is there a product in your lineup right now that's $19.99?
No,
Or am I
there's the
making that
pepper,
up?
the handheld with the pepper spray is $21.99.
Okay.
So, and that's the combination with the pepper spray or the alarm up top in the pocket and the Go Guarded blade at the bottom, and it straps around the back of your hand with Velcro. So again, just like the ring, your hands are free. You can still check your Garmin. You can still fix your ponytail. You can still grab a goo or a gel. And it's the same thing. It's always ready. It's attached to you. So less likely you are going to have it taken away and used against you because it is attached to you. And the nice thing about the pepper spray and the Go Guarded blade combo is that I like to call it a dual defender. The pepper spray is there if you are in a situation that is ideal. The person is coming right for you and you're able to deter them with the pepper spray or by pulling a really loud alarm, then great, you've avoided that attack. But if the situation that you're not able to, it's a sneak attack, they jump on your back, then you go to plan B, which is you do have, again, attached to your hand, that Go Guarded, that same heavy duty plastic blade, and you could just start hammer striking your way. I mean, obviously you don't want to kill someone, but,
Right.
or maybe you do. And, if they're attacking you, it's, it might be warranted.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you just want to buy yourself a little time just to create some distance, couple of seconds just to get away. Because that person that is attacking you, believe it or not, they are nervous too. They don't want to get caught. They don't want to get injured. And if you fight back, you're not a great victim for them. So hopefully that would deter them enough to flee.
And you bring up something that's really important that I learned in self-defense is that what you're trying to do is you're trying to buy yourself time so that you can escape. And one of the things the teacher, he told us, and I loved it so much, the metaphor he brought up, or I guess the way he explained it, is only you know what you're bringing to the party. You don't know what the other person is bringing to the party. So you do what you need to do, and then you get away. And that to me it seems silly, but almost counterintuitive of like, wait, I don't stay and fight. And he's like, no. You fight and then you get away. You run away as far as possible. Like you go. So I'm curious, because that was something that I thought, in your experience, what are some of the myths you've heard when it comes to self-defense?
So one of the biggest things that I hear, especially regarding the ring, is that people say, oh, well, I'd never let anybody get that close to me. And that's great. Like, what is your secret, right? If somebody is hiding behind a pillar in a dark parking lot as you're trying to get into your car and you don't see them and they jump you from behind, like, what's your, okay, this is how attacks happen. I don't know if you know the story of Kelly Heron from Not Today. This is explicit. So. It's called Not Today, Motherfucker. So
Okay.
I do apologize if you can bleep that out. No? Okay.
You're good.
Okay, we're good. Okay. So Kelly was, so this is probably 6 years ago. Kelly was up in the Seattle area at the time, training for a marathon. And she had stopped at a park and to use the restroom. And so she's at the sink, she's washing her hands, and there was a guy hiding in the stall, one of the other stalls. She's got her back turned and he literally jumps on her back. Right. So this is, and she fought him off, and yes, she was injured and needed stitches, but he got injured too, and she got away. She managed to trap him in the bathroom, and he got caught, and he was already a sex offender, a known sex offender who had fled. And yeah, so she created this company then that was her mantra, because she's fighting this guy and she's saying, not today, mother effer. And so my point being, like, you could not, that was an attack from behind. And that's usually how these things happen. So when people say, I would never let somebody get that close to me. Okay, well, good for you. Like, I think you're wrong in your thinking.
I was gonna say, I wanna meet that person, because
Yeah.
I I'm also, I tend to think, I take safety very seriously on my runs, and I take it very seriously for the community that I run with. And I am someone, at the moment, I do quite a bit of my runs by myself. And that was, again, in the last self-defense class I had asked, I'm like, well, what if someone yanks my ponytail from behind? And I mean, it was great because he taught us kind of what to do. But here I find that self-defense, those classes, that's something that we have to always be working on in order to keep skills fresh.
Absolutely.
So for me, it's like, my ring, that's something, at least when I think about it, and hopefully this never happens, but I'm like, wait, I can always remember how to make a fist. At the very least, I can remember how to make a fist.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes I might not remember, the different drills for getting people out.
To get out of the ponytail. There is a series where you turn, and there's steps you can take.
Exactly. That was the one that really surprised me, because at least when he taught it to us, he's like, you have to turn around and then lean in so that you slacken it. And then from there, it's you hit. I can't remember specifically what it was. Exactly. But it felt so counterintuitive. And I remember telling him, I'm like, are you serious? If someone grabs my hair, my instinct is going to be to pull away, not to lean back so that I can break it. And that's one of the things that I found just so interesting when it comes to self-defense, because it does feel, some of it feels kind of counterintuitive. Whereas again, something like the ring, I'm like, okay, as long as I can, at the very base of my survival, if I can remember to make a fist and use that fist, my chances are better. And again, I think it's really interesting that some people would say that they would never let someone get close enough to them because, and this is something that I'm curious your thoughts on it, because I feel like anytime we hear about an attack or something happening to someone, what is it called? The peanut gallery comes out and, they start, it's all victim blaming. And
it's terrible.
Why was that person out at that time? Or why were they by themselves? And I personally, I get really, and I'll say it. And if you've ever told me this is, you're coming from a good place. I want people to know that when they care about my safety, I know that they're coming from a good place, but it really pisses me off when people tell me to stop. And it pisses me off even more when people tell me, oh, stay safe. Like, I'm not trying to stay safe. Like, safety isn't something I'm concerned with. So when you have people who come to you and they're like, and I'm going to put this one out there, just so that we can hear what your response is. Well, women shouldn't be running by themselves. What's your
Yeah.
response to that?
That's a tough one. I think they're wrong. And so but I try to understand them, right? And because like you said, I think they're coming from a decent place most of the time, where they're just concerned for that runner safety or your safety. And so I just indicate that, well, that we all have choices to make. And if you choose not to run at night or by yourself, or that's your choice, and everybody should be given that freedom to run how and when they want to, without that victim blaming and that victim shaming. And the other thing I say is I try to make it relatable, in the sense that, well, we as women, and I mean guys too, but we're focusing on women right now. Women are sometimes so overburdened. We are working full time often. We often have kids at home. Maybe your partner works a different schedule. And to run, like you said, you ran 22 miles. You do these long runs. Sometimes you have no choice but to do it super early in the morning, while before maybe your partner's home and can watch the kids before they go to work. Or maybe you have to go out in the evening when your kids are with their grandparents, or maybe you're a nurse and you work odd hours. All these things are true. And so why don't we stop judging people, women, for these decisions that they make, that sometimes this is their only opportunity. And if you don't want to run at night, or you don't want to run by yourself, then you shouldn't. But don't shame and blame other women.
Yeah, whenever someone says that to me, I always point to the fact that, women have been attacked in the mornings, in the middle of the day, in the evenings. It really doesn't matter.
Right.
I
Exactly.
again, I get really upset about it, because I'm like, it's not for me, especially because I do take so much care in staying safe. I just get bothered because, again, it's like this
Sure.
implication that the person didn't do enough. And it's like, well, how
Right.
about the person who did the harm? Like, why
Exactly.
are
Let's
we
focus on that.
exactly?
Absolutely. And the other thing I'll say is, he was like, oh, why you don't run at night? Don't run at night. Well, you know what? Sydney Sutherland in Arkansas, she was kidnapped and murdered while out on a run in rural Arkansas during the day. Right? Molly Tibbetts in rural Iowa was out running. I think it was evening time, maybe late afternoon, evening time, when she was abducted and killed. There were two runners. There were two runners. This is terrible. This is when I was first getting started with Go Guarded. One was in Massachusetts and one was in New York City, like Queens, maybe. Two runners, except unrelated, but like maybe 3 months apart. Both were murdered during the day while out running. One was Vanessa Marcotte, I think is her name, and she was up in Massachusetts visiting her mom, and during the day, and just, or morning, like 10 o'clock in the morning, goes out for a walk or run, and never came back. And then the other lady was Karina Vetrano, and that was the one in New York. During the day, went out, or morning, daytime, went out for a run and never came back. So yeah, maybe it might be a little scarier to run at night. I don't like running at night, but mostly because my eyesight, it's hard to see, and I'm going to trip in a pothole, right? And
Yeah.
just something about the night, you hear sounds, and you're like, what was that rustling behind me? So you get, I think, psychologically a little freaked out. And so for me, I don't run at night, even with friends, because I'm going to roll my ankle on something. It's just how I am. So I don't personally do that, but a lot of people do, and they don't have a choice. And to say that you're safer, to run during the day, you might, I don't necessarily think that's true based on, looking at some of the horrible things that have happened in the last 7 years. Since I've been really involved in this, and I'm sure there are other examples prior to this, but since I became involved and really focused on runner safety, female runner safety, I know, I follow these stories and I know when and what time they happened. So yeah, it happens during the day too.
It happens during the day. And also just, anyone who's listening, hey, it doesn't matter what you're wearing either. So that's
Exactly.
the other one, that when people are like, oh, you shouldn't go out in just a sports bra like that. And it's like, no, again, to me, it's the whole, let's blame the victim, but not talk about the greater issues of
Sure.
why, again, Eliza Fletcher was the one that in September, that one just
Yes.
made such massive news. And I want to thank you also for sharing those other names, because this does happen. I don't want to say it happens frequently, but it happens enough, but we don't hear all the stories, right? Like we only hear some of the stories, and the internet has been great in terms of connecting stories across space, across time and whatnot.
Yes.
But that Eliza Fletcher story was the one that I think for me, especially, it really got to me, because it's, she's a mom, she was out running early, and
Yes.
I felt that. I felt that the waking up early to get the run done before getting your kids ready for school, before getting your day started. And to hear that, and again, I just want to acknowledge that there are names, and that there are people who have been attacked or who have been murdered while on the run or while out on a walk that we may not necessarily know. And that it is something that we should all be worried about. And the question I have for you now is, why is it important for everyone to worry about it? Because again, whenever we hear these stories, I feel like sometimes the victim blaming gets so loud that, how do I describe it? That like, we just miss the point.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, and again, after Eliza Fletcher, it's funny because I came home and I was pretty upset about it. And I don't know if it was the day that the news came out, because there was like a period. There was, oh, this person is missing.
Because she was
Like,
missing. Yes, it was in the
exactly.
news cycle. And that's why I think so many people, like for you, that's a good example. For you, you became hyper aware. That caused you to become hyper aware. And I think she was a turning point for a lot of other female runners, because she was in the news for an extended period of time because she was missing. And so there were all these efforts to try and find her. Whereas some other women runners that have been murdered have made the news, but less well known, because they weren't necessarily missing for a long period of time. So
I think that was just something that gap definitely made a big difference. And I remember
absolutely.
being at home and kind of mentioning it to my husband, and he's like, oh, I heard about that and I didn't know how to talk to you about it. So the question I have for you now is that why is it important for everyone to be talking about this, and not just women? And I'm going to say it, and not just women who actively try to protect themselves, because again, like in the aftermath of these things, you have some women that come out and they're kind of victim blaming as well, which is like, wait, are you kidding me? Like, no.
It is so ingrained, so deeply ingrained, that breaks my heart when I see other women not standing up for and being there for other women and engaging in that victim blaming mentality. And I try to, be generous in my thoughts with them and not come at them, because they don't know. That's what they were taught, and that is their thinking pattern. And to try and shift that, it's a big effort. But I think there is that effort going on, and it's not just me. There are a lot of other people, a lot of organizations finally, stepping up and saying, hey, let's stop blaming the victim. So I think, what was the question? Why is it important?
Why is it important for men to be concerned about this, for other women to be concerned about this?
Sure.
I just don't want it to be, or I guess that's part of the fight, right? Of like, this isn't only a women's issue.
Right, exactly. And I will, I love our male allies, and I've got so many, people on my Instagram, and men that reach out to me and say, I love your product. I bought it for my wife. I bought it for my daughter. I got it for my mom. And I love those male allies, and the ones that do step up and say that same thing, like, hey, let's quit blaming the victims, and and I've had men ask me, hey, what can we do? And I love that. So I don't hate men. Like, I've been accused of, oh, you're such a man hater. No, absolutely not at all. And I also do acknowledge that these attacks do happen to men too. It's just not as often. They are less vulnerable in these situations. They have their own host of other problems that they have to deal with. But I think it's safe to say, in general, male runners are less of a target, right? Because somebody, if for whatever reason, if they want to harm you, rob you, whoever that perpetrator is, they're going to look for the easy victim. A 6 foot, 190-pound guy running is not a great victim, and they're not going to choose that person. They're going to choose the lone female who maybe weighs 120 pounds, right? Because they're easier. They're going to be easier to control, because ultimately this is about control, power and control. A lot of these attacks on female runners, the sexual assaults, it's power and control. So in that sense, men runners are less vulnerable. But I will say it does happen, and there's, his name is Bennett. He lives in Philadelphia, and I think a year and a half ago he was out running in the morning and by himself, and somebody mentally unstable approached him, maybe like said, do you have the time or something? And he's a nice guy, so he stops and looks at his Garmin, and for whatever reason, like I said, this person was just mentally unstable and just starts stabbing him. So he manages to fight him off and get away, but it does happen to men too. So yeah, we should care, because we're decent human beings, and we should do all we can for ourselves and for our loved ones to take care of our personal safety and get home to our loved ones, to our families. So
yeah, that's the thing where, my husband is that 6 foot, 190-pound guy, right? So like,
yeah,
and I'm the little shorty in the house. I'm 5'2". I won't say my weight, just know
right.
that it's enough. But
Yeah.
I am on the petite side, and whenever I go to run, it's kind of one of those saying like a silent prayer for myself of like, all right, a goal is, yes, to get the run done, but also a goal is to come home safely, like make it back home from my run safely. So with that in mind, what are some safety tips that you have for women and for anyone who's listening to this? And again, I want to emphasize that there is safety in numbers. and we
Absolutely.
can both,
Always.
stand on the pulpit and say safety in numbers.
Of
But I
course.
have a feeling that for the vast majority of women who either listen to this or the vast majority of women who run, they don't always have the option
Exactly.
to run with other people. So what are some of the things that we should keep in mind, or some practices we can have
Sure.
while out on the run to
Absolutely.
stay safe?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the number one thing is situational awareness. It's something we should all be practicing while we're running, while we're walking in parking lots, when we're walking across campus, when we're getting in and out of our car, anywhere, everywhere. We should do it while we're driving, right? Always be aware of what's going on around you. Don't have your face buried in your phone. Um, it, don't wear two earbuds or two earphones while you're running. You want to be able to constantly engage with your environment. Don't
Mm.
make yourself an appealing target by not, because the perpetrators are looking, right? And it's often an opportunistic crime. You just happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. But if you're standing up straight and you're presenting that don't fuck with me attitude, right? And you're, chest out, shoulders back, you're looking strong on your run, you're constantly looking around, engaging with your environment. Yeah, you're probably not the best victim, right? So for me, that's the most important thing, situational awareness, right? The best fight is the one that is avoided,
Mm.
right? And the other thing I do, and I do this while driving, while running, pretty much anywhere, I just get in this habit. I play the what if game. Okay, this guy's running towards me. I'm sure he's fine. He's just out running. But what if he does this? What's going to be my reaction? Well, what's around me? Is there anybody behind me? Like, if I'm driving, oh, what if this person, they look like they're driving erratically? What if this happens? What's my reaction going to be? So I always know what cars are behind me, what are next to me. So it's just this mental habit that does keep me engaged and aware of my surroundings, and it does, I think, keep me safer to avoid that fight. Because what if? So it's just a habit. I think it's a great habit. um yeah, so I would say that. um and a lot of it is just, again, that mental, like, know that you are worth fighting for. You are a badass, and know that you will do what it takes. Yes, right? It's that attitude. And that attitude, whatever you need to do to get that attitude, whether it's carry self-defense weapons, whether it's go get training, take jujitsu, take self-defense, whatever works for you that gives you that mindset, and that don't mess with me attitude, right? And you spread that everywhere, right? You let people know I am not the one.
Oh my God,
So
if I could hug you right now, I would. I would hug you so hard.
yeah,
Because there's a few things I want to respond to. And just so that everyone knows this, because again, when I did the self-defense class, there was one time, I forget what we asked him, but we were like, what do we do? And again, he totally said exactly what you said, which was look like someone who shouldn't be messed with. And it
yeah,
was that. He's like, when you're running, run tall, like look
yep,
strong. So that, to me, that's why I'm like, yes,
yeah,
this is the second time I'm hearing it. So obviously it's a truth, right? Like
yes,
it's not just the self-defense, but you're saying it as well of like, no, give off that, I don't know, the aura, the
yeah,
energy, like give off the
absolutely,
vibe
yeah,
that I can take care of myself. And I feel like that's the big one. I love how you said that you're worth fighting for, because I think the flip side to that is, wait, I can take care of myself if I need to. Yes, I'm worth fighting for, and I'm going to fight for myself. But at the same
yes,
time, I can take care of myself. So I absolutely love that, because it taps into something that I think about a lot often, and that, we cover in this podcast, the mental aspect of being a runner. And that's part of it, of like, when you're out there running, and you said it, don't make yourself appear as a target. And I love that, because it's like, oh, wait a minute. Yes. On my runs, if I'm dragging my ass, I'm going to look like a weak target. But if I can just remind myself, hey, shoulders down, like head up, like look like you're here, even if you're suffering, you do appear stronger. So I just love that you pointed that out, because again, I feel like physically we can do things to keep ourselves safe, but you're just tapping into something deeper, that confidence. Again, like how I said earlier, right? Turning a moment of vulnerability into empowerment, of like, I'm here. I deserve to be here, and I deserve to be here doing it in peace. But don't mistake that for me being a victim. I just love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And I also, it's a gift for me, the what if. And I think that's such a great habit for everyone to have, because I'm thinking of myself when I'm running and I'll see another man that's running and maybe I'm going to pass them. I always give them like a wide berth. Like, I'll be like, okay, you're here. Let's create like 10, 15 feet between us. I'm going to run around you. But I never went further than, let me give myself physical space, where what you're doing, you're encouraging and you're inviting everyone to think of, let's think again, let's put our brain to use of, all right, I've created the physical space, but what if the person runs up behind me? What can I do? And it's totally, again, I think of what I learned in self-defense. I forget what I called it, but it was like the bat arms. I don't even know, because that was one of the things. He's like, imagine someone comes behind you and grabs you. It's basically lifting your elbows out up, and then like you hit back. So it's even something like that of even though, what if this person comes behind me? Just thinking about that, and I'm experiencing this in my body right now. It's like, oh, if that does happen, just that thought of what if, I'm going to make sure like my muscles are ready. Whereas, sometimes when you're running, yes, we want a relaxed upper body and everything kind of loose. But for a moment in time, you can kind of create some tension of, just in case, like, let me create that tension in my upper body, so that if someone does come behind me, I can do something. So I was just like snapping and smiling. And I was like, man, I wish I could give you a hug, because I love those two things, because it's, again, I feel that empowerment comes from us figuring out how we can take care of ourselves. And those are two things that are, okay, let me mentally get ready to take care of ourselves. In terms of, and I've had this moment, there have been runs where, and I'll share this personally. So there have been runs. I don't run with music because of safety reasons. Again, I want to be aware of what's going on around me. But I have seen people, and women in particular, with the big
that kills
headphones over their ears, or whatever that's called. And I remember I saw someone and I wanted to stop and tell her, don't wear that. But also in that moment, I'm like, but who am I to tell her that? Like, why, like, she should be able to run how she wants. So how do we balance the, hey, situational awareness and safety, but also do what feels comfortable for you? Is that even a thing of comfort? I don't know.
And I feel everything you're saying about seeing other women making what I personally, choices that I would not make while running, such as, not engaging with their environment, exactly, having 2 earphones in or 2 earbuds in. And it's really hard for me. And it takes everything I have not to like approach them and say, you shouldn't do this, or here, what do you need to take a safety item and not, give them the ring off of my finger or something, but you can't do that, because it's creepy, right? And nobody wants to be stopped on their run by a stranger. Like, good things don't often come out of that, right? So you just have to leave people to make their own decisions if they're strangers. And that's tough. You really, because you're a caring person and I'm a caring person, you want to help that person, but I have yet to find a good way to do that. So if you do figure that out, follow up, let me know.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I mean, I just try to encourage everyone that runs with me to not.
Exactly. And that's all we can do. Yeah. Is to those that we have their attention and we have their ear, educate those people. And then hopefully it ripples out and everybody becomes aware of what they can do to stay safer while running.
Yeah. And it's not to say don't. I mean, you have like shocks and you have other bone conducting things that you can wear.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So I don't want to take away from people, especially, if you're like running and listening to this particular episode, I don't want to take that away from you, but it is that I mean, and again, like I remember it too, from when I was a newer runner. I mean, I would have my headphones in and I would blast it. Like I would blast the music. And once I became a run coach, that was their request of like, all right, if you're going to coach with this particular or like under this particular certification, we ask that you don't run with music or headphones or any of that. And at that time I told myself, I'm going to try to do 21 days. 21 days is the habit. I'm going to try to do 21 days. And after the 21 days, I could not imagine going back to having my headphones. One, because I liked knowing what was happening around me, but also this is a benefit of not running with headphones is I was actually able to tune into better, like, how am I breathing? How hard is my foot falling? How is my body feeling? Like there were cues as a runner that I was missing because I had the headphones on.
Yeah, because running can sometimes be miserable, right? So you want the distraction. I love music, and it's really hard for me if I'm running alone, which honestly I really don't do often. And I mean, part of it's safety, but more importantly, if I don't have a crew to run with, there's a good chance I'd be like, well, do I really have to run? Like, is the world going to stop if I don't go run because I've got 1,000 other things to do? So me personally, I'm not that dedicated of a runner. So I need my crew. So I run with a crew. If I'm going to run, it's 90% of the time it's with other people to keep me accountable. And that's just how I am for running. I'm very motivated in other areas, but it doesn't leave a lot I don't have a lot of motivation left to dedicate to running because I spend it in a lot of other places. So that's just me. But when I do run alone occasionally, it's really difficult for me not to have music. Yeah. But if I do, often I'll just, I'll have a vest, my Nathan running vest, and I'll put my phone in the pocket with the speaker facing up, and I'll just have it so I can hear it. And I can also hear, like, I don't wear earphones at all, but I do know a lot of people say really great things about the aftershocks and the bone conducting. So another great option.
Yeah, those are all, look, I have them for when I go on my walks. And that's that I'll wear it while I'm on my walks or while I'm at home because I can still hear what's going on around me.
Yes.
Ultimately, you got to do what you feel comfortable doing. I think hopefully you hear this and you just take a moment to pause and ask yourself, oh, when I have the music or the podcast or whatever in my ear, am I still aware of what's happening around me? And if the answer is no, let's take a step back and kind of reflect of what you can change in order for you to stay safe.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what we can do. We can just try to educate and, reach whoever we can with this information.
Yeah. All right. This question gets asked of everyone who comes on the podcast. I'm curious to hear what your response will be to it. The question is, how can we make running more accessible and inclusive?
Great question. No, I know for me personally, I do a lot of my communication through Instagram. So I go out of my way to make sure that I am providing a platform. I'm sharing stories. I'm sharing pictures, in my Instagram stories and my Instagram reels and all that. I am very conscious to make sure I am sharing and promoting people of different ethnicities, people of different sizes, I think is so important. And then also, I am following them. So I am constantly learning what it's like to be a person of color running and what the unique challenges are for them. And so not only do I try and promote those voices on the platform I do have, I also try, I'm constantly engaging and learning and do I have to make my products a little differently to make it accessible and available for larger bodies? Yes. So I've done that. So I created a large ring. And yeah, if anybody I'm always open to feedback. Please tell me your story. I want to learn. I want to share it. A lot of the things, and I try to just support different voices, whether it's somebody, one of the things I'm doing now that I think is needed is I'm doing more outreach and education and providing samples into the LGBTQ plus community. I think it's very vulnerable. They have their own set of issues, safety issues, and they might not be running specific. So I'm starting to learn and listen and support that, whether it's, I gave samples, it was pretty funny. It's called Les Roll. It's a jujitsu for put on, like Les Roll, Lez. And I was like, oh, that's such a clever name. Right. And they target vulnerable LGBTQ people and they provide a safe space in the Pride community to learn self-defense. I was like, that's fantastic. They did have a big ask, like, can you provide 50 products that we can give away at this class? And I was like, well, that is a really big ask, but I love that name. I love what you're doing. Yes, I will support that. So me personally, that's what I do. And like I said, I just try to learn, I try to listen, and I try to support and make my platform available to the best of my ability, because it does matter.
And again, see, everyone's home. Those were my dogs, if you heard them. But I was going to say this is so in theme or in line with, I feel like, the foundations of Go Guarded, of, again, from a very vulnerable moment that you experienced, it rippled out into empowering others. And that is such a beautiful, and again, trailblazer is how I would describe you, where it's, no one asked you to do any of this,
right?
But you are. No one asked you to find a solution to a problem that affects 50% of the runners, people. Right? Yeah. Right? Like, if we're assuming 50% is some kind of vulnerable population, I don't know what the statistics are in terms of male, female, LGBTQ, non-binary, whatever the case is. But again, it's, you saw it, you did something about it, and now you're making yourself open to whatever else. And I just appreciate that so much. And the reason why I asked this question is because I think it's so important for us to constantly have a dialogue of what we can do to make the sport better. Whose voices are we leaving out? Whose voices should we invite in? And to what you said of your platform, using your platform to uplift the voices of others, because same thing with my platform, right? It's mine and it's my personal space. And but it's only my voice that's reflected on there. So to open yourself up to share other people's voices and other people's experiences, you never know who's watching it.
Oh,
And who
absolutely.
can see themselves either seen or supported by you. And all of a sudden, here's your product. But now this product, your whole company is an ally to a community that maybe you didn't intend that product to be there for, because 7 years ago, you just thought of yourself as a woman and what can I do for other women, right?
Right.
Like, so to see it, and it's all because you listened, you learned, and then you've responded. So I appreciate that so much. Final question is,
Sure.
where can we follow you? How can we support you? Do you have anything exciting coming up with Go Guarded? Just how can we celebrate you?
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, we started doing Pride events. So we're going to be in Denver. I guess they do a huge Pride festival in Denver. They're saying like 500,000 people go to the parade. It's over the course of the weekend, and they'll see 500,000 people in Denver. So we're going to be there. We're going to get a booth, and we're going to, sell some product, um, maybe spread some awareness, and to that vulnerable population, especially in today's political environment. It's a really tough time to be different.
Yeah.
So we're really excited about that. That's, I think, the 25th and the 26th or that weekend, somewhere around there in Denver. So we'll be there. So super excited. It's our biggest. We've only just done a couple of small Pride events. This is kind of our big coming out to that community. So we'll see how that goes. So I'm super excited about that. And then I'm always thinking about new products and new ways. So I've always got something cooking on that. And I can't always share that because it's not all patented, but we're always looking to grow and to listen. And I am on Instagram, go_guarded. That's where I do most of my communication. So yeah, reach out to me there. And we've got the Go Guarded website. Obviously, you can buy products there. We have some educational videos, some escape techniques, and also on the Instagram, right? We do, whenever I follow a lot of self-defense experts, and whenever I get a reel on Instagram that shows how to get out of a ponytail grab, how to get out of, somebody's got you against a wall in a stranglehold. So if there's ever a video or a reel that shows that, like easy, concrete, easy to follow steps we can take, that's always going to be on the Go Guarded website and on Instagram. We try and promote that because yes, obviously this is a business. I want to sell products, but that's just half of it. The other half is I genuinely care about other people, and I want everybody to be safe and feel empowered. So I try to promote that content.
Yeah, the education piece of it is huge.
Yes.
And that's definitely part of it. And I know that in your email as well, right? So the Go Guarded email also has resources as well. So
Yes.
yeah, thank you for joining me. Thank you for being here. Do you have any final words for the listeners?
Oh, I just really want to thank you, and I want to thank the listeners. And I would not be here if it were for not people supporting me and supporting my business and following and purchasing and reaching out. And that's the only reason I'm here, because of other people have responded. So I never lose sight of that. I am forever grateful. And thank you so much.
Yeah. Keep creating. I'm a big fan of the products. And like I said, the women who are in my inner circle of running, they've all been gifted one, and I have more to give out as well. So thank you for all that you do.
Oh,
Everyone.
absolutely. And you can always email me, and I am happy to spread the love. I love doing giveaways and things like that to just spread the message. So I'm always there for that.
I love it. All right, everyone.
Okay.
We'll see you on the next time. Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much.